Let's start with some questions here. The first ones are going to center around the platform plank of the county that deals with open and honest government. This question would go to you, Celia, first, and then to Trey, and then we'll swap. Why do you think you would be a more open and honest county judge than your opponent?
I think my background includes having worked on behalf of people who need open and honest government, not only serving as your county commissioner, not only stepping up the pace and asking that we be more open, but being open is not just about having you file an Open Records Act request. It's about also developing public trust in the government. And it's about an honest person who will say, I've made a mistake and I'm sorry. But I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to get expertise, whether it's from Prairie View A&M University, whether it's from professionals throughout the state of Texas. I'm willing to make sure that we gather the expertise so that we can work to get it right. I want people to go to sleep at night knowing that their government, their county judge, has worked hard to make them proud of this community. That's what we need. Waller County is suffering from a black eye, let's just say it. We want developers, we want employers, we want people to move here who are confident in this county. That's really what open government is about. And it's not just about posting campaign finance report, it's not just about posting things on the internet. It is about the sense of confidence that people have in themselves, absolutely. In terms of who they voted for, in terms of being able to get to the Commissioner's Court and see what's happening up on the dais of Waller County. It's about county government making sure that folks know, via all the technology that we have available in this community, that we are working to get information to people, encouraging people to participate, because I can tell you, I represented people who've been denied the right to participate in government, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So those are the reasons that I have the background, I have the experience, I've suffered the lumps, and I'm ready to take on the responsibility of your tax dollars and make sure that you can sleep well at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Trey?
Richard, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. Why do you think you will be a more open and honest county judge than your opponent?
Well, again, going back to my opening statement, actions speak way louder than words. I've obviously committed to an open and honest government. I've been working very hard for an open and honest government in Waller County since I got here. For years, while we were involved with Citizens for a Better Waller County, we saw things happening in Commissioner's Court that just didn't make sense in terms of open and honest. Everybody would say they had an open door policy, but I didn't see that in practice. And people would come in, there would be major motions, major agreements, things that would be put on the table, things that got put on the table during my opponent's tenure, where they would come in and there would be motions and a second and an approval or a change with no discussion. Where did the discussion happen? I never could see it. I'm just not going to let that happen in this county. I've got a very specific list. There's not going to be walking quorums. County business will be discussed out in the open for the citizens to know, because you have a right to know who's making those decisions, why they're making those decisions, where the money is going. It will all be done out in the open. We need more, the technology, yeah, the technology needs to be utilized. We're not using it. Why can't people get online and see our Commissioner's Court meetings? And this technology is not new. It could have been done 6 years ago, 7 years ago, but it hasn't happened. I'm glad my opponent brought up posting a campaign finance report, that it's not about that. I disagree. I think campaign finance reports and posting them on time and making sure your information is out there for people to see says volumes for how you are. You know, it's not what you do when people are looking, it's what you do when people aren't looking. So we can talk about campaign finance reports, because I've made a point of filing all of my reports on time by the deadlines in accordance with the law, and I've disclosed every dime and every expense. My opponent hasn't. She's missed 4 deadlines this year. She has been previously fined by the TEC for not complying with those deadlines. She acknowledged those deadlines. So those little actions speak volumes. And the question was comparing. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. I am actually going to do what I say, and I will do it in accordance with the law. And I will give you the transparency and the information you deserve, and I'm not going to tolerate any excuses not to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, I want to congratulate you. You knocked out 3 of my questions with your collective answers there, so I appreciate your openness.
Just a question, will we have a chance to respond? I think that would be good. It's a small group, and since we knocked out 3 of your questions. I'm okay with it.
Sure.
Good. Okay.
One round.
Just to quickly address the transparency issue. I don't have a problem being transparent. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Missed deadlines? Yes. But my reports identify my donors. My reports will identify the occupations and have identified the occupations and employers of donors as requested. And as we're speaking about transparency, let us just, all know that, Richard, I appreciate your generosity. The audience probably already knows that you've contributed $1,000 to Trey. Billy Frazier, I know you're filming at least 500 or more, right? People in this room, let's do a quick showing of hands for transparency. If you gave to Trey Duhan's campaign, raise your hand. Okay, I appreciate that. If you gave to Sylvia Cedillo's campaign, raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you, Becky. That's transparency. I will put my name on the line with regard to that. May not meet some deadlines, but I have complied with those reports with regard to who's giving me money, who they work for, what their occupation is. And I see Trey squirming here because he didn't do that on any of his reports. In addition, there were corporate contributions. You don't find those on my reports. Nobody's going to buy Sylvia Cedillo. They just don't. I lost my first election because people didn't buy me, and I would like to go into the judge's seat making sure that nobody has bought Sylvia Cedillo. Thank you.
May I respond, Richard?
Yep.
I'm glad Sylvia brought this up. Some of you may have seen this article in the Hotline Press. Ethics Commission investigates Duhan's transparency. Ethics Commission has been asked to investigate Trey Duhan for lack of transparency in illegally accepting corporate contributions as reported in his campaign finance reports. What you're all going to get tonight is a copy of the complaint which was filed against me by Ben Tibbs that was drafted by Sylvia Cedillo. I find it funny that she can point to individuals and call them by name that they contributed to my campaign. You know why she knows that? Because I file my campaign finance reports and I disclose the information and I do it on time. In this report, you'll see the complaint. You'll see the basis for their complaint, which is that I did not disclose the employer of my contributors and that I accepted corporate money. You will see the email that I wrote to Mr. Ben Tibbs, outlining the basis for why that was an actually baseless complaint. Because I'm not required as a county-wide candidate to disclose the employers of my contributors. You do if you're statewide, but not county. The corporate money, my contributions, the 3 that were referenced in this complaint, which you're all getting copies of, was an LLP, a limited partnership, and a PLLC. They don't fit within the definition of a corporation as defined under the law. And if anybody with legal know-how who looks at the law can clearly state this. Mr. Tibbs, who is an honorable person, has withdrawn the complaint with the TEC. Ben, is that correct? Okay. And that withdrawal is also here. And lastly, there is a resolution from the Texas Ethics Commission. This is 2013. And what this resolution says is that you cannot generate your own smear campaign by filing a complaint and then putting an ad in the paper, oh, he's being investigated. This actually says that to do so is an unfair practice and should be judged accordingly by voters. It is condemned by a bipartisan commission to file a complaint and then use it in a political advertisement. By the way, sorry, getting a little emotional. By the way, 3 weeks ago, we filed a complaint against Ms. Cedillo for her failure to file, and I say we, the Republican Party, Did you see a press release or an ad? No, because it's highly unethical to do so. So that is what I have in response. Thank you.
Just one final counterpoint. Thank you.
No,
What I heard
no,
loud and clear, Richard,
no.
was,
Sylvia, I
That's
told you
all.
guys you had one round.
I got it. That's all I'm
her
required
off.
to do. When
Cut
the
her off.
government says to you, that's all I'm required to do, you ought to be concerned, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, Sylvia, Trey,
I'm okay for another spot.
we're not going to get into a debate here over this. We've got other questions that are on the agenda. You guys got a choice. You can either play by the rules or you can make up your own. I will act accordingly.
Thank you. I'm ready.
So, open and honest government. You mentioned some of the things you're going to do. I'd like to know from your action plan, what specifically are you planning to do and how are you going to get that done within the county rules and finances?
Okay, am I first?
Sure.
Okay. First, what we're gonna do is we're gonna open everything up. We're gonna open the windows, the shades, we're gonna let the sunshine in. We're gonna put everything out on the table for everybody to get whenever they need it. That means we have to increase access to records. We don't have enough records online. We can do a better job. I'm gonna work with the other county officials to make sure that we're all committed to those principles of putting as much information, too much information online. I don't want anybody to ever come up and go, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know there was a meeting. I didn't know that there was, I want to be able to say it is all available for you. Everything that you need can be obtained. I want to use plain language agendas. I want to improve the website. I want to make sure campaign finance reports go back online. They were taken off a year ago. I've been asking and asking and asking for a year now to put the campaign finance online. If the county clerk does not want to do that, I will put it on the county judge's part of the website because people have a right to have that information. We need to increase social media. I learned during the Tri-County wildfires when I set up Waller County Fire Info, there was not enough information being given to the public. They were starving. I set up a Facebook page in 5 minutes and in 24 hours, 35,000 people were using that page to get all of their information on the wildfires. The county was calling me to get information out to people, to keep people from running roadblocks because they didn't have any information, and they were afraid. And information, obviously, as you know, is power. I want to broadcast online. I want our commissioners' court meetings to be recorded, possibly broadcast, but somewhere where somebody can get to it and look at it if they want to. Raise your hand, how many people can go to a commissioners' court meeting Wednesday 9 o'clock? Wow, okay. Where y'all been? Anyway, if you cannot make it, then you should be able to get online and be able to see those commissioner courts meetings because you need to see the discussions so you know who's making the decisions. I want to schedule the meetings. Maybe we can schedule the meetings in a way, in a manner that can make them more accessible to the public. And of course, I want to use county-wide workshops to make sure citizens are informed. People call me Mr. Social Media. I know not everybody uses social media, but you know what? Even people that don't have computers, like your older generation, their children, their sons, they have computers and they can get information to their parents. I saw it during the Tri-County wildfire. And most importantly, we have got to get a public information officer for Waller County to oversee open records requests and ensure compliance by all county officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia?
I think we have to balance open and honest government with what we do for the employees who run the county, with what we do for the elected officials, as well as what we do for the public. I think that's very important. One of the best resources that county government has is the Texas Association of Counties. I think they're incredibly important. I think they need to be brought into Waller County. The folks who have the expertise to give us training on open government. Because one of the jobs of your county judge is to make sure that we prevent liability. The county's involved in 2 lawsuits right now. We want to make sure that we avoid liability. We want to have the best trained officials, the best trained department heads. And once we do that, we want to make sure that we have our plan that we do any policies that need updating. We want to have a county judge and commissioner's court that works with the district attorney's office for advice, and where they don't have expertise, we get that advice. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure. I have been part of, in my previous life, I'll say, putting together a little handbook on open government. That needs to be put together or found. I'm not about reinventing the wheel, and let's make sure that we can post that kind of information. And then we work on, of course, the records. And just because of the comments earlier, I totally support campaign finance reports and any other reports about the quality of life and any legal agencies, any state agencies. Those should be reported so that people could access them. They should have information and articles posted in the newspaper. And let's be real, look at our population. Where we can, we absolutely must provide that information in Spanish. Porque yo sé que es muy importante para la población que está aquí en este condado. It's very important for the population that is here that we have open and honest government, and that it be in Spanish and English. Because that's true open and honest government for the future of Waller County. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Let's move on. Next questions are going to center around the notion of effective long-range planning, something I think that's important to all of us. In the remarks from both of you, you have pointed out that Houston is coming this way quickly, probably quicker than any of us want to believe, and certainly in forms we'd really rather not see. So, the question, I think Sylvia, you're up this time. Why do you think you would be a better county judge than your opponent when it comes to effective long-range county planning?
Part of my experience involves having worked for children. We have a very young population here in Waller County. Part of my life experience involves working with law enforcement. That's important. But it also has involved planning, and what do we do for the future, and how do we develop policies. All of that bureaucracy is really part of planning, that people are well trained and confident in what they're doing. But the planning that we also have to do will involve economic development, involve mobility, and involve definitely how do we protect the resources, the precious resources of Waller County, our air quality, our water quality, our land quality. Because whether you know it or not, there are permits that are being issued at the Road and Bridge Department where people are trying to develop their own, their water system, their sewer system. And when they're drilling for water, sometimes they come up with dry holes. We have got to know about our water and what we're doing, because for sure people want Waller County's water. And we have to protect it. We have to protect it. But at all times we have to be reasonable when we're working with people from inside the county and outside the county. And that's one of the points of my experience, is you have to be reasonable. You can't create theater. You have to always work with all kinds of people, whether they're frustrated and angry, whether they're offering you education points. That's a part of long-range planning. And I do believe, I gotta tell you, if we don't have the expertise to do it within the county, then I would ask that you support my role as county judge to go outside and get a professional agency whose job is specifically long-range planning. Not just the Houston Galveston Area Council, not just the Texas Association of Counties, but other folks who do this on a daily basis, who do 5, 10, and 20-year long-range plans. So again, that the residents of Waller County can sleep comfortably at night. And it's that part of my life, that's part of my being an experienced listener that will be able to help us with our long-range planning. Because we want our green space, we want our houses, we want our industry, and we want our small window shops. We want all of that. We want it to look good, we want it to be attractive. We want to make sure that we attract people. That's what part of long-range planning is about. It's about the beautiful diversity of professions and people in this community, but also knowing that our population is older, our population is younger, and knowing that we have to work within the demographics to plan the resources and service for this entire community. Thank you.
Obviously, we're at a point in time in this county where we can't put off planning any longer. With the growth that is right on our doorstep, we have an incredible amount of planning to do. Planning and emergency management, the planning with building and fire codes, County facilities, we've just got this facility study back. We're looking at millions of dollars to replace key county facilities, facilities you can't go without. Flood planning, water planning. Obviously, we saw in the south end of the county where, Fort Bend County wanted to take 20 million gallons a day away from us. How does that affect your future growth? It's huge. Mobility and transportation, gigantic. How are we going to get from point A to point B? This county is going to grow. Our FM roads are going to get congested. There's going to eventually at some point be stoplights. Control, what are we going to do? Widen those and look like FM 1960 in Houston? I wouldn't want that. How long does it take to get from 290 to 45? It's ridiculous. Mobility and transportation is going to be critical, working with all of the stakeholders. Long-term planning. During my tenure, since I've got here, I spent the first 3 years fighting the Trans-Texas Corridor. That was done through a lot of grit and determination, people getting in the trenches. The biggest grassroots effort the state of Texas ever seen, and we beat it back with a stick. We put together the Waller County Subregional Planning Commission, which is why TxDOT finally waved the white flag in that matter. After that, I worked with Citizens for a Better Waller County. We worked on issues like recycling. I couldn't believe when I got here we didn't have any kind of recycling center. We worked on that project. We did the grant. Rosemary Gambino and other members, we did the grant, built the recycling center because the money was sitting there on the table. Animal control. These are the kind of issues that I've done, and I'm not an elected official. So that's something. I will say this, I didn't hear, on my opponent, I didn't hear a lot of specifics on what she did long-range planning-wise during her tenure. I will say this, because again, it's the difference. I know that the Waller County EDP, back in 2008, presented an opportunity to Commissioners Court for to get a $50,000 long-term strategic plan that they could have gotten for $8,000. It never happened. And that was in 2008. It could have been useful for today. But now we're back at square one. We have got to get this done. No more talk. It has to be done, and it has to be done soon. We have to do all of these things, and that's why we all have to work together. Thank you.
Thank you both. On the same topic, there's a saying that most of you know I'm an environmental engineer, and there's a saying in that before somebody starts on a project, just remember P6, which stands for Prior Planning Prevents Piss Poor Performance. My question to you both, we'll begin with you, Trey, is what are your immediate plans in the first 90 days of your administration should you be elected?
Within the first 90 days, there's several things. One, I think there are some small things we can do in regards to transparency, like putting our Commissioners Court meetings online. I think that can be easily done. I've already talked to several individuals. They said it's with technology, it's not going to be an issue. Making sure that we start immediately working on the website. By the way, if anybody gets a chance here, go home tonight and Google Walker County, just like Waller, just change one letter, Walker County, and look at their website. It is incredible how much information is available to people online. They have won an award from the Comptroller's Office 5 years in a row for financial transparency. You could spend weeks going through their financial documents. They have their check register online. Those are things we can start immediately. I've also committed within 90 days, I want to begin the process of developing a comprehensive waste management plan for this county. That is an open process that involves the input of all the citizens based on good science and studies and in compliance with the Texas Health and Safety Code. We found out, unfortunately, in June of 2011 that this county was not prepared for this landfill situation. We do not have a waste management plan. That's when we found out we should have had one years ago. Here we are 3 years later. The landfill's in litigation. We still don't have a waste management plan. Just doing a landfill ordinance, zoning it to 1 mile north of here, that is not a plan. That is an attempt by somebody to put it into somebody else's backyard. We have to have a plan. I asked Commissioners Court 3 years ago for a plan, that we not let what's going on in this litigation stop us from beginning that plan, and it hasn't happened. Resources, we need to start taking an inventory of those natural resources that need to be protected. We need to find out, for example, where can you even begin to locate or site a landfill. I don't think that study's been done to date, where you can even do that in this county. The people of this county need to find out, do we even want that? I think a statement might have been made in the last candidates forum. I didn't make it, that we have to have a landfill. That's still not true. We are not required by law to have a landfill. We can decide as a community, if geographically it doesn't work for us, then if we can't have one, we just have to live with the fact that it's going to have to go somewhere else, and we're going to have to pay for that. So I have several items, again, and I'd be more than happy to go into more detail, but my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia?
The first 90 days will set the tone for the next county judge. The county judge for his or her 4 years will have to work with elected officials and department heads and the public. We might want to think that we have got to jump in and get things moving immediately and make immediate changes. From my experience, what I know, you will have a falling out with your department heads and elected officials. We have got to, because of how things are going on right now, because of the litigation that is going on, because of how Waller really needs to heal in terms of how county government has operated, and especially relationships with the public. I think it's important in the first 90 days that the county judge have his or her checklist and make sure that they have met with every single department head, every single official, to find out what do they need, what's working, what's not working, and to get input from them. I think it's also important within the first 90 days, the elected county judge has got to get up to speed on the litigation, got to get up to speed on all the processes that are going on. While we do keep up, being able to have access to counsel, being able to have access to whatever type of meetings we need to have, and reporting on those meetings, of course. We've got to do it in the first 90 days. We also will have to review the budget. That's what the county judge has got to do. Where are we now? How are we doing? And how do we start planning? And making sure that that county judge has great input, so that we can continue providing the best services. Because I know when people in this room call 911, you want to make sure that you've got every resource coming to you to make sure that you're safe. That's critical. That's critical. I also want to make sure that we have effective town hall meetings in every single precinct. I did that during my candidacy, and I love it because it helps shape my message. Waller County people, regardless of all the differences, regardless of all the challenges, regardless of the litigation, regardless of the threats to our air and water on a daily basis, regardless of the lives that we lead, what you really want, the message that came out loud and clear is you wanted an effective, experienced leader who listens, and I can provide that to you. I think it's also important to start building the bridges with our elected officials in terms of the city officials, in terms of the school officials, because if we're ever going to move beyond the issues that are facing Waller County, we have got to be working on the same page. We have got to have that kind of effectiveness, and I'm really glad to see Mayor Scott here tonight. But that's the reality of Waller County in the first 90 days. Whether you like it or not, that's experience. And that's mistakes that I've made in my first 90 days, and I've got that here to tell you. In the first 90 days, you're running and going and meeting and talking. And you gotta do that if you wanna be effective.
Thank you both.